on what is contained in that application, a postponement may be granted or the process will continue.
All right, let's go to this conversation now. As we mark World Obesity Day, we are being urged to confront the scourge of non-communicable diseases. Research shows that an estimated 1 in 8 South African children are overweight, which is double the global average. Now, this comes with all kinds of health risks. Let's speak to HEALA Interim CEO Nzama Mbalati, who joins us live now. Nzama, thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, as we mark World Obesity Day, deaths from non-communicable diseases are concerning worldwide. How are we doing in South Africa?
Thank you for having us, Bongiwe, and good evening to SABC News viewers. I think we have a big problem in South Africa, and as you have indicated, we have actually more than doubled the global average in children. So it's a big concern that 1 in 8 children are either overweight or obese. And even if you look at the general population, 7 to 8 women are either obese or overweight, and 3 in 10 men are either obese or overweight. So we have a big problem that we need to actually deal with as a country that is facing, the growing epidemic of non-communicable diseases, and mortality and morbidity rates are actually increasing. So we are sitting in the time bomb that we need to resolve urgently as a country with multiple intervention and multi-stakeholders approach in terms of response to this.
And one then asks, before we even get to some of the interventions, is this because, people are maybe stressed out, or people are not, sometimes they say people are lazy to go to the gym or lazy to exercise, better health, lifestyle choices. So what can we attribute this to?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest problems in responding to the non-communicable diseases linked to obesity and health conditions linked to obesity, the biggest problem we're having is also the way in which we define the problem. So when we call it a lifestyle disease, we put a lot of blame on the individual. When we know that in South Africa, it's not a coincidence that we have the obesogenic food environment. So the food environment that we live in, from the food that we eat from breakfast, lunch, the drinks that we have and dinner, has a lot of excessive salt, sugar, and fat. And in that, if you look at it, if you talk from breakfast cereal, we have a lot of food that has got excessive sugar, salt, and fat. And moving into the food that we eat during lunch, the market is actually proliferated with the energy drinks. We have a lot of sugary drinks that are very cheap and affordable. So the food environment is very obesogenic. And in a way that exercise and body activity is very key. We know there are a lot of issues that has to deal with. Me and you, we are at work at the moment. So when do we get time to exercise? There are issues of safety in the streets. Many people get mad, many people get robbed. And we need to actually start developing, including towns, that they actually have the urban setting that can allow people to actually have body activities, including cycling. We know people who are cycling. We see a lot of road accidents, to people who are cycling on the road. So we have a multitude of problems and myriad problems that are actually associated with the non-communicable diseases, and the biggest issue being, the obesogenic food environment that we live in. We can't get a lot of food that is healthy. There's issue of affordability, food prices, accessibility of food, and we need to make sure, including what HEALA has been campaigning for in terms of the Health Promotion Levy, how do we make healthier food affordable and accessible to people in households and communities?
That is true, and I'm going to get to, hopefully, we talk about then how people who are not, physical, who don't like exercises then do, but when we look at the food, how important is it then that there's a big push for more of the front package warning labels, because sometimes people don't know what they are actually consuming?
So that is the biggest issue, and I think that's a critical point you have raised. Many of us, we do not know the food we are eating. And I think one of the biggest problems globally, and in particular in South Africa, is that the labeling of food doesn't give us the facts. So it doesn't give us as consumers the right to know what is in the food. And most of the time you get a lot of food that is punted to be healthy, and we think it's healthy. When you buy yogurt, you get it's written low in fat, but it doesn't say it's high in sugar. So such, I think, is the biggest problem. And I think one of the things, similar to tobacco, most of the people know the harms and the risk associated with tobacco because of the regulation. So in the front of pack of tobacco, there are actually, explanation in terms of at the first glance or the first view, what are the risks associated with tobacco. Now, we know that food with excessive sugar, fat and salt has high risk of making people obesity, and it's associated with the ill health. So I think there is a greater need for South Africa to move urgently to label food in a bold way, in a simple to comprehend, in a way that people can understand and can know what they are eating as a right to know in a very urgently. And I think we want the Department of Health to speed up that process, because most of the people, without going to a classroom or being educated, they know the risk associated with the tobacco. Giving an example, because of the labeling in tobacco in terms of what are the risks associated.
Sure. It sounds like I don't even know if we should eat then in that regard. Some of the, my colleagues in studio saying, what do we eat then? But how then does someone who is, not physical, not inclined to go to the gym then, going to stay potentially healthy? What are some of the options?
So good diet is first and foremost the most important thing. I've got 2 children myself, and one of the things we find out is that they will have colon infection, and that was due to diet. So we're living in the world of too much snacking. We are busy. We eat a lot of ultra-processed food and junk food, and the way in which it's so convenient, drive-throughs, to get, already prepared meal and fast food. And we also, because of the time, prepare children a lot of ready-made food that needs a warm-up. So I think we need to transition to that. We need a huge food transition. We need a diet transition in this country, including, how do we ensure that we eat plenty of fruits, water, what is funded to be healthy, including sugary drinks. How do we reduce sugar? So for people with conditions such as diabetes, they will have a script that, they have to cut down on starch, they have to cut down on sugary drinks, they need to cut down. So we start to tackle the problem later. So I think it's important in terms of education and awareness that in combination with the food regulation, including the package of policies that we spoke about, including the front of pack, including, taxation on unhealthy food and making healthier food more affordable, more accessible, and more cheaper by, zero rating food. So I think it's important that we can have the greater awareness. We can build, a broader awareness in terms of actually ensuring that people understand what they are eating, but also how do we ensure that, we cut down on unhealthy food, how as a basic, because if you cut down on sugar, salt, and fat, I tell you, for example, even if you're not exercising, you are going to have a controllable weight. You're going to see a lot of difference by just the change in diet in that respect.
All right. I suppose then it's time to make better choices if you haven't started. That's what I'm hearing you say. And meal prep is also going to be quite critical here. And what you prepare is also going to be quite important. Nzama, thank you so much for talking to us this evening and giving some, some of the viewers some coping tips in order for us to be able to make some better choices. That's HEALA Interim CEO Nzama Mbalati. And moving on to this, the Eastern Cape Health Department has